participant screen, you can click on your own name. You'll be at the very top when you click on participants. It's at the bottom near the middle. And when that screen comes up, you can click on yourself and there'll be an option to rename in that list. So our person calling from 0951, who are we speaking with? Okay, they just went back on mute.
Hi, my name's Christy. I'm from Ontario, Canada. My number ends with 0951.
Okay, that's perfect. And you spell Christy with a K?
CHRISTY.
Got it. Okay, that's perfect. We got that taken care of. And let's make sure our friend with the iPhone is renamed. Okay, not. So I'm gonna ask them to unmute. And I can go ahead and take care of that for you. Hello?
Good morning, Terrence.
Good morning.
This is Edwin.
Okay.
I'm the one that has the iPhone name. I need some assistance renaming myself. Can you help me on that?
Yep, taking care of it right now. EDWIN?
Yes, sir.
Gotcha. All right, Ron, it looks like that's it. We should be clear to go.
All right. So again, I want to say thank you for being here today. We are excited to have our guest, Dr. Jessie Rayl. We are doing this on National Mental Health Day. For those of you who don't realize that, this is a very appropriate day to have a workshop on mental health. And coping with COVID is about just the special added impact this has had on us, the shutdown of the pandemic and all the stress and anxiety and added depression that this has brought within our community. And I'm not going to go on much more, but I want to say thank you, Jessie. I appreciate you being here today, and I'm going to turn it over to you. And if as you go on, if you have if you want to stop for questions or however you want to address that, we will deal with it. Otherwise, we'll take questions at the end, and I'm going to turn it over to you. So please welcome Dr. Jessie Rayl. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for having me and inviting me to do this presentation. It is a very important presentation. Mental health concerns are significant. I've read different data on that, but approximately 55 to 75% of people who did not previously have mental health disorders are reporting now problems with mental health. And that includes, depression, anxiety, development of traumatic stress disorders, and many other problems as well. So it's becoming a significant issue. Unfortunately, it's not going to go away anytime soon. So the best thing that we can do is learn how to improve or take care of our mental health. And before you can really learn coping techniques, and we're going to talk about coping techniques, but there are some things that you need to understand you can't resolve problems until you are informed and maybe understand what the problem is or why the problem is existing. So, when we talk about COVID 19, we're actually talking about something called SARS, SARS, CoV 2. And SARS means sudden adult respiratory syndrome. So that's basically what it is. It's a virus, but the virus causes an infection. So once you have this COVID-19, you not only have a virus, but you also may end up with a pretty significant infection. What you're spreading to other people is the actual virus, and that's kind of like cold or flu. But this virus is much more contagious. It's much easily spread, and it can have major impacts on people. It does not always result in death. In fact, a small percentage of people are actually dying, but it's still a large number of people. So there's a whole lot more people who have been infected, and most people will recover. So, you may have heard recently that it's nothing to be afraid of. Well, it's something to be cautious of. It's something to be mindful of. You want to try to not be so afraid of it that you're not doing anything or you're not going anywhere, or you're not functioning. But you don't want to be so, you know, unafraid of it or uninformed about it that you're taking unnecessary risk to yourself or everybody else or other people. Um, COVID impacts everyone differently, and the impact varies from time to time. So, somebody may not have really been significantly impacted in March, April, May, June, but now suddenly they really are. Or maybe the impact to them was more significant early on in the epidemic, but now it's not quite so much. So, when people talk about how it impacts them, be mindful that this can change. I heard somebody a couple days ago, somebody was really talking about, having some major difficulties now coping. And the response was, well, you weren't having any problem before. What happened now? Well, a lot of things may have happened. So just because you weren't having problems a few months ago, or just because you were having significant problems a few months ago, things could have changed. It also varies from each state and even individual areas within the state. And that changes. You know, West Virginia, which is where I'm from, initially had very few cases. And it took us quite a while to get, you know, to where we had a significant concern. Then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, the county that I live in just was huge in numbers. I mean, all of just it was just pretty suddenly, and the rest of the state was still kind of, moving along very slowly. But now we've seen a turn. Some of our counties are just really high. The one that I live in is still fairly high, but not as bad as it could be compared to some of the other counties. And the numbers overall in West Virginia are going up very quickly now. So, you know, just because it's not happening in West Virginia doesn't mean it's not happening in Texas. So just because it's calmed down in Texas doesn't mean that it's not crazy in West Virginia. Um, so when you're talking to people, be aware of that. And also, not only is it important to pay attention to the numbers, but it's also important to think about the size of your county or the size of your state or the size of your city. Because a huge city is, with a high population is one thing, And a very rural area with a very low population is another. Um, I was just reading the numbers, and one of our counties is just a very small county. I bet you it doesn't have more than maybe 5,000 people as a population, but they've got over 400 cases. So, for them, that's pretty significant. Um, each person feels differently and about, and feelings aren't going to remain the same. So just because you felt really, really anxious over the weekend doesn't mean that you will feel that way next week. Or just because you felt really depressed doesn't mean that you'll continue to feel that way. However, if you continue to have anxiety or significant depression, and this is going on for weeks or months, absolutely, it is time to get it treated. Because the longer you wait, the more difficult it's going to be to get it treated, and the more anxious and or depressed you're going to feel. Plus, you could end up with other problems as well. And I know people are like, well, I don't want to, go on medication, or I don't want to, go into therapy. Um, it's it's to your benefit to take whatever options of treatment are out there and to do it as quickly as possible. Because when we're talking about medication, hopefully we're not talking about medication for depression for the rest of your life. Eventually, we're going to return to some sort of normalcy, and COVID won't be as big of a threat. But until it is, if you're having problems with severe, severe depression or anxiety, it's really important to seek treatment. Um, AFB, American Foundation for the Blind, did a really interesting survey. And they did this survey earlier this year, but they believe through ongoing research that the concerns are still pretty much the same. And all of these concerns are over the 50%. Everybody who took the survey was blind or visually impaired. And there were almost 2,000 people who participated in this survey. And there's a huge list of various concerns. So if you find yourself having these concerns or any of them, you're not alone. You're probably in the middle of 1,000 to 1,500 people who share your same concerns. Um, you can get that off of the AFB website, afb.org, and it's called the Flatten, FLATTEN, Accessibility Research. Um, so the biggest concern probably for blind and visually impaired people was issues surrounding transportation. How would they get to and from work? How would they get to and from doctor appointments or grocery stores or whatever else they needed to do? Would they be able to continue to visit their friends and socialize? And the answer to many of those questions was no. Um, many paratransit either were marginally operational or some weren't really operational at all. Some had some pretty significant restrictions, as you know. So transportation definitely changed. In the midst of that, we had issues with Uber and Lyft. They were reluctant to pick people up, or they were reluctant to take people to specific places. Um, they had certain expectations that may be difficult for some people to do. Um, so transportation was a huge concern. Um, a large number of people had concerns and probably still have about health care. Would they be able to access health care? Would they be able to participate in health care? If you have COVID, would you be treated like a non disabled person? If you were in the hospital or um, would there be a difference? And I don't know that there has been any real resolution to that problem. I do know that they are trying to make it more possible for people who are disabled or elderly to receive health care. But, of course, that would depend on a lot of circumstances, your area, what your state has available, what they don't, your county, probably your insurance. So there's still a lot of concerns. Um, a high percentage of people were concerned about their underlying health issues, and would that make them more vulnerable to COVID? And we have found out, in fact, that's a very legitimate concern. People with respiratory illnesses, people with diabetes, people who are hypertension, people who have obesity, those are significant medical issues that do impact COVID and not in a positive way. So, um, another percentage had concerns about socialization. When you go to places, how do you get help? Will you receive help? How are you going to manage the social distancing? And social distancing is the real issue. How are you going to get, or will you still get physical assistance? Like when you need to sign something, are you going to have somebody, are they going to be willing to touch your hands and show you where to sign? Um, Things like that. So those are very significant concerns. And as we all know, blind people view their world with touch. I mean, that's just not avoidable. We have to touch, and other people have to touch us at times, to get things. So, how do you deal with that? Um, Another huge concern was about education. Many of the platforms are not accessible. Schools are, they're open and then they're closed, and then they're open and then they're closed in many cases. Rehabilitation had stopped a lot of their services as well. They were open and then they were closed, and people, uh, their education was literally stopped in the middle. I worked with Job Corps, and many of my students that, well, most of my students, you know, some of them had just gotten there, 2 weeks before or a month before. They were just starting into their program. Some of them were almost finished, and all of a sudden, Job Corps just closed. And so those who could continue the distance education could continue the distance education, but some of the trades, there's no way you can do them online, carpentry and that type of thing. So it was just stopped. And not only was it stopped, they only have so much time to complete this. So what happens when they're out for almost a year? Because our center has been closed since March. And that's happening all over to many, many people. Employment was a huge issue. Many people either lost their jobs or found that they just could not continue to do the work, because, either transportation wasn't available, or they couldn't get places online, or they couldn't do their job online because the platforms were not accessible. Um, and parents have a lot of concerns about their children. Can they continue to get their education? There's been a fair number of people who expressed how would they continue to get food or supplies. Could they continue to do that? Then, of course, there's a lot of concern about voting. How are you going to get to the polls? Are you going to get to the polls? Are you? How can you vote accessibly? Most states don't have accessible voting, to people who are blind. So that's a huge concern. And because of all these concerns and probably a whole lot of others, um, there's a high level of depression and anxiety. Um, then a lot of people are, how long is this going to last? What is going to be your future? Um, you're worried about your family, you're worried about your friends, and to kind of complicate all of this is the whole thing with the media. You know, we hear all kind of things on the media. So now we're going to talk about some strategies for coping. You can probably think of a few other concerns, but we're going to talk about some strategies. First of all, limit your exposure to the media. Find reliable sources and stick with that, and just try to limit your exposure to that. Also, limit your exposure to negative social media. Now, a lot of people say, oh, but I, keep in contact with people on Facebook. That's fine. But if you're reading a lot of negative stuff on Facebook, you might want to unfollow people who routinely and habitually post those negative posts. If you can scroll past them and not let it bother you, that's wonderful. But, you can unfollow them and then visit their page whenever you want to, or after this is over. So try to stay away from negative social media. Find reliable sources. And think about it this way. If you wanted information about buying a home, you would go to a realtor, or you would go to a legitimate source to buy a home. You wouldn't go ask your medical doctor. You wouldn't ask your dentist. Not likely. You might talk about it with them, but you certainly wouldn't, that wouldn't be your first resource. If you wanted information about your animal's health, you wouldn't go say to your medical doctor, my dog is doing this and this and this, what should I do? You'd call the vet. Well, it's the same with COVID. Find reliable sources. And reliable sources are going to typically be the government sources, because they have an accountability not to send out a lot of bogus information, like Center for Disease Control, those types of um, National Institute of Health or National Institute of Mental Health. Now, those are regulated and they have a higher accountability to send out reliable information. Um, the next thing that you can do is think about how what you do affects not only you, but your family, your friends, and everybody that you associate with. And I know there's a lot of controversy about wearing masks. You will have to use your own judgment with that. I personally wear a mask because I figure it's something I can do, and it probably isn't going to solve 100% of the issue with COVID. But if it offers me a little bit of help, a little bit of protection, that's a good thing. If you're riding in somebody else's car or an Uber or a Lyft, it's probably a good idea to sit in the back versus the front, because you're farther away from them and they're breathing forward and you're breathing forward. Um, Open the window if you can. Just ask them if you can crack the window a little bit. Keep some fresh air ventilating in the car. Um, Wear a mask. And when you're out, take hand sanitizer with you. And every time you touch something, use it. Do not touch your face or your eyes. If you need to adjust your mask, and I always have to, they tend to like to go up and cover my eyes. um, just get a hold of the bottom with a finger or two and pull it down that way. Because if you go for the top, now you risk contaminating your eyes. So, be aware of that. Um, be sure that you're cleaning your cell phones and your mask and things that you touch often. Because what you don't want to do is, you go to a public place and you've just taken hold of somebody's arm and they've taken you somewhere. Then you grab your cell phone in your hand. Then you put it up to your ear. So be mindful of that. And those little alcohol wipes work great. You can use them to clean surfaces and clean your hands or whatever you need to do, but just do that often. And of course, you can use soap and water if you have it. Um, it doesn't have to be antibacterial soap. Regular soap will do the job. If you have antibacterial, that's fine. When you're out, if you can, follow the sighted person. If you can possibly follow them, and you can even say to them, I need you to keep talking because I need to follow you. That is going to be better than actually touching them or allowing them to touch you. Because if they're infected, they're going to transmit that through their hands to you, or vice versa. Um, so, I mean, obviously, if you have to walk with them, then you have to walk with them, and just get a hold of the back of their arm or touch the back of their arm or their shoulder. But be very mindful that people are recommending that you cough and sneeze in your elbow. Um, so be sure that your hand is at the back of their arm or, like I said, on their shoulder. Um, Try to use empathy and respect when you're having exchanges. We really never need to find ourselves in the middle of volatile arguments and that type of thing. That many people are feeling extremely stressed, and you're feeling very stressed. And so, if you find that a conversation is getting, argumentative or volatile, it's okay to just say, I'm going to back out of this. I'm going to, step away from this. Um, because it's going to be better for you and your own mental health. Identify your specific needs. You know, there's a lot of things we want to do, but there are certain things we need. And so try to separate that and make sure that you're getting your needs met. And then, if you get the things you want, that's wonderful. If not, at least you're getting your needs met. Um, if you can come up with a plan as to when you when you have to go out, how are you going to handle that? What are you going to do? And one of the things I do is call ahead to find out what the store's procedure is or the bank's procedure. And even if I was there last week, I call ahead this week to find out because their procedures change all the time. And I don't want to get there only to find out that, only so many people can go in. And so therefore the rest of us have to stand outside and maybe there's not much of a place to stand or maybe it's pouring down the rain. So if you could find out their procedure, and this isn't to warn them that you're coming, this is to find out what is their procedure so that you know how to prepare for what you need. It can be a really long stand in the rain if you find yourself having to wait for a bus. So, that can help. Try to make sure that you have essentials, non-perishable foods, toilet paper, animal food, your medications, things like that, so that you don't find yourself walking over to the closet and you suddenly don't have any toilet paper. or your dog doesn't have any food. So if you can come up with, some extra, that will be better. And then when you get to when you're using your extra, then you can prepare to get more. But that's a whole lot better than finding yourself without what you need. If you have concerns about your health or how could COVID affect you, talk to your doctor about that. Um, Most doctors are offering at least telehealth. And if you call and explain to the receptionist that you're blind and that you really can't use the video, if you can use the video, don't even go through all of that. Just use the video. You can't see them, but they can see you. Um, and if you can use things like Zoom and that type of thing, you probably can. All you have to do is find the video button. Some Well, the problem is telehealth actually is requiring that people use the video. Some doctors' offices have said, to make an accommodation for somebody, we're not going to require that they use the video. But it can be difficult because some of the powers that be, like your insurance company, they have certain rulings, and so it can be difficult, and that's where people are finding themselves in that conundrum. But talk to your doctor, talk to your pharmacist about your medications and what you need to know about that. Go straight to the source, back to our reliable sources. If you want to find out what's going on in your area and what the requirements are there, most states have COVID hotlines that you can call. You can always call your local health department. Another important thing to always have is the suicide hotline, which is 800-273 TALK 8255. Keep that, keep a crisis line. You can get your local crisis numbers. All states and counties have local crisis numbers, and so you can get that through your mental health center, or your local hospital should have that number for you. If you can't get it that way, you can dial 211 and get that. But make sure that you have some of those numbers. You might think now, oh, I'll never need that. Well, it's better to have that number for yourself or your family or your friend than end up with an emergency where you just feel really out and down, and you need somebody and you don't have a number. So if you can go ahead and get those numbers, that will be good. Um, 211 is a really good resource to have if you can get through. Uh, they're pretty busy, but it is the United Way, and they offer on that number all kind of community services, anything from food help to medical help to financial help to mental health help to substance abuse help. It's really a good resource to have. Um, Try to establish rapport with your family or your pharmacist, your bank, your minister, you know, different places, because the better you've established rapport, the easier life is going to be. I had some papers a couple of weeks ago that I needed to sign for my bank, and so they really were reluctant for me to come in, but they said I could. So we finally resolved it with, you put a piece of tape on there where you want me to sign, and, and nobody has to touch. So I just went in and signed it, and that worked really well. So try to establish some rapport with these people, um, because then they can assist you. There are different apps you can use like Be My Eyes and Ira. You know, they can help you do things that typically somebody else may have come in your home to do, but now people aren't coming into your home as much and you still need these things done. So you might be able to use those. Be really open with your family, especially if they live in your home, about your needs and your concerns, and listen to theirs. Um, it can be really unnerving to know that, you know, somebody in your family or lives in your home, they're still running around and socializing and not wearing masks, and they're bringing the germs into you potentially. So, you know, be open with them and let them know what your concerns are. It's really important to find enjoyable activities, video games, games online, online support. There's all kind of Zoom calls. Some are social, some are games, some are informational. There's Facebook groups. You know, Feel More, Livewire. It just goes on and on. And the more connected you are, the more you're going to find out about what's out there, and you'll have people to talk to pretty much 24/7. Um, it's amazing, you know, all the different things that are out there. Feel free to take a break. It's okay to take a break, step back from some of this. It's okay to tell your family or friends that you don't feel like, or you know, you don't want to go somewhere, especially if you know that the social distancing is going to be a problem or whatever. It's okay to say no. It's okay to step back. Um, you know, it's just really important to try to be as connected as you can and try to be true to yourself. You can take this opportunity to learn new things. I've learned a lot about technology over the past several months, just by going to different groups and using it and that type of thing. Um, Now is a really good opportunity to read or work on some other craft activities that you might want to do. Music is a great relaxation or a way to express yourself. Um, Learning and using things like meditation, mindfulness, prayer, deep breathing, those four things are very helpful in terms of relaxation. And they all work pretty much the same as far as the brain is concerned. So, whatever works for you, it's really important to do that. Now is a good time to declutter your living space and keep it clean. Um, you may think that nobody comes in your home, and so it doesn't really matter whether you disinfect or not, but it does, because you're bringing groceries and you're bringing other things, you know, from outside. So, you know, keep your home clean. Try to get regular sleep. Um, a lot of times people are having difficulty with sleeping, but sleep is absolutely important. So try to get regular sleep, get exercise, spend some time out in the sunlight so that you're not stuck inside all the time. And sunlight also helps synthesize vitamin D. A lot of experts are recommending that you take extra vitamin D supplements, a D is in dog, and that you also take vitamin C. And you're not going to overdose on those two because they are water soluble and they're not, you know, you just get rid of it if you don't need it. A lot of times people are using essential oils, chamomile, lavender, vanilla, you know, things like that, for relaxation. Um, or they're using peppermint, cinnamon, eucalyptus to kind of clean the air. Um, Try to be positive, and being positive doesn't mean ignoring how you feel. Being positive just means that you're trying your best to take a positive spin on things. Now, it's also important to acknowledge how you feel and feel that you can express how you feel. Nobody can be positive 24/7. Nobody can be upbeat and happy 24/7. So, you know, find a way to express how you feel, whether you do that to a friend or whether you do it in writing, whatever. And the last thing that I want to talk on, and I'm only going to touch on this, is grief. Because it's really important to understand that through this thing with COVID, we're all grieving in a way. And it, whether you've lost people to COVID, whether they've died, or whether you have lost other things. You could have lost your job. Maybe your spouse lost their job. Um, your you know finances may have changed. Um, a sense of freedom is certainly happening. Maybe you've lost your connections with certain people. Maybe you're not able to see your grandchildren or your elderly parents or your grandparents or whoever as much. All of those things are losses, and it is absolutely important to acknowledge them. Try to avoid comparisons. Oh well, my situation isn't as bad as such and such, or well, it's not as bad to lose, an elderly person as it is a child, that type of thing. Your losses are important to you and they need to be acknowledged because the only way you're going to work through that is to acknowledge them. And you will probably go through the usual stages of grief, which is shock. I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe I just lost that. I can't believe, you know, to denial. No, it didn't really happen, or, well, it's not that big of a deal, or, you know, well, I'm going to get it back eventually, or whatever. That basically is denial because you're not allowing yourself to feel what you feel. You might get into a bargaining, especially, you might, uh, God, if you make this better, I'll do whatever, or um, that's all part of grief. You may feel angry. And that can be hard because it's very difficult to feel angry with somebody because they got COVID and died. But you may feel angry. You may feel deep sadness. But once you allow yourself to go through all of that, you'll come to acceptance that it's happening, that it's real, and that you will be okay, that you can move on. Once you do come to acceptance, you can do something special in memory of the person. Just even writing a tribute to them or a poem or, a few sentences about why they were special to you. Um, Lighting candles. You can find a special music. Have a virtual celebration with other people. Display photos or get yourself something special like wind chimes or an angel or a music box or candle, something. Um, and you don't have to wait until you've gone through all the stages of grief to do that, because sometimes just the act of doing something special will kind of move you from one phase to the next phase. And a lot of people have the idea that the stages are one, two, three, four, and they're not. You might feel, you might be in denial, and then you start moving out of that to the emotional phase, and then you might go back into denial. So the stages are, you know, there's no specific pattern, but once you do get through the denial phase, then you'll go into the emotional phase. And that's the one that can often last for a long time and where people get stuck. So, again, it's important to express how you feel. And absolutely, if you're really, really struggling, get professional help. Professional help doesn't mean that you're not okay and that you won't be okay. It means that you are proactively taking steps to help yourself. So I'm going to shut up. Um, if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask.
Well, we had one hand raised, but they lowered it. Um,
It was Sailor.
yes, and he's raised it again. So, Terrence, can you handle that? Sailor, can you unmute?
Hello?
Go ahead, Sailor.
Okay, well, Dr. Rayl, first, I want to say that that was a really good presentation. That was very informative. Actually, all the bullet points you talked about, it makes a lot of sense. I don't have questions, but I just want to make a few comments and statements of what I thought and, my personal experiences. There's no question this time has been very, very, very hard for a lot of people. And, it's been so hard that people indeed have had mental health problems. There's been increases of anxiety, depression, even suicide rates as well. And I mean, as for myself, I haven't felt depressed really. Well, maybe a little bit. I felt more anxious. I want this thing to be over. I want this whole COVID virus to be done. And, I know, I'm sure you're going to think that it's not good, but what I think about this, sometimes I just get so anxious that I want to defy the orders of the CDC and officials and just go out and just so be it. If I get the virus, 99% chance I recovered from it. I've felt that way before. And you see, sometimes, I don't know about y'all, but I felt that, this whole pandemic is just being blown out of proportion. People think it's a huge deal and they're panicking for nothing when it really isn't, because I'm sure y'all know more people have died of the flu. Only a small number have died of COVID, and it's mainly those who have underlying health conditions.
Hey, Sailor, in the interest of time, we're going to ask that you maybe cut your question short because there's other people, and then we have another part of the presentation.
I know, yeah. But, overall, it was just I just wanted to comment on my thoughts. It was a good presentation.
Well, it's pretty normal. And this is part of the denial thing when you start thinking, I don't care. I'm just going to go out and do what I want and whatever. So that's part of the denial thing. But again, you've got to step back and say, my going out and doing what I want is going to affect other people.
Yeah.
And it's going to affect me. I've thought about that too. But, then I step back and I say, well, wait a minute. If you do get the virus and you don't survive, then who's going to take care of the dogs? And so everything I do affects other people.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have Herbie and then Cheryl and then Christy. So Herbie?
Okay, am I unmuted?
Yep.
All right. Hi. So first of all, just want to echo what Sailor said. Great presentation. Thanks for being here today. I've been thankful that I am grew up around like a much technology culture, so COVID hasn't affected me in a lot of ways that other people. But I do have a comment and then just a question. You mentioned something earlier about people being afraid to touch you. I've actually experienced sometimes the complete opposite. It's like it's almost like we're living in normal times. Like the other day, I was waiting on Metrolift, and some random stranger came up and just gave me a pat on the back. I've had sometimes Metrolift drivers touch my arm or whatever, and it's kind of like okay, well, I don't know how paranoid should be, because it's like I don't know where you've been, you don't know where I've been. I wish sometimes that I did experience a little bit more people being a bit more paranoid, unless it's a situation that actually truly requires. But I mean, that's why I guess they invented hand sanitizer. So, well, that's not quite why. And then my question though is, so the death rate, I do believe, I think that it is safe to say it is higher among people that do have health conditions. Are there any so I'm assuming A, that's correct. People that have underlying health conditions, and B, is there any breakdown of like which kind of health conditions are going to put you more at risk versus, others?
Well, the latest that I've read from CDC is people who are over the age of 65 or 70, something like that, are at greater risk. Um, Obesity, hypertension, heart disease, and diabetes are the four hot ones. Interestingly, they're not as concerned about other respiratory illnesses as they are the other four things. But certainly, if you have COPD or severe asthma, things like that, it may be more difficult as well. Um, Autoimmune disorders like rheumatoid, uh, other lupus, things like that, maybe make you more susceptible to the virus, but people do seem to be not as effective. So for whatever reason, it seems to be the obesity, and then the heart disease, hypertension, and diabetes.
Okay. And next we have Cheryl, who has her hands raised. So go ahead, Cheryl.
Thank you very much, Terrence and everybody. And I just wanted to say that this was an excellent presentation, and it reinforced some things that I've already been doing. And I think that your presentation today was very reassuring. And I've noticed this week there's been a lot of changes a little bit. I'm a flutist, and of course this has really affected the music industry very, very much, because I blow across my flute and it spreads droplets. The aero droplets are in the saliva. So there are places where they don't want us to play publicly, and that's been really, really hard. So I've been researching and experimenting with various masks and shields. Do y'all have any place where you're getting your shields? I got one at Sam's and it works fine. I just would like to get one that would expand out in front of me a little bit further. Have y'all been using plastic shields?
Well, mask and face shields are not all created equally. There are a gazillion different people out there making them, and there are a gazillion different kinds. And basically, all you can do is experiment and see which ones work for you, because people's faces are made different.
We're all built differently.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all built differently, and the masks are all different. Um, there are certain ones that I can't breathe in them. I don't know how anybody does, but people apparently are, because they're being sold. Um, some of them fit better. So once you find a good one, I'll get a couple.
Yes.
Hang on to it.
Yeah. Well, more than anything, I've been trying to realize other people's feelings, like you said, because some of these people are very, very, very paranoid. And so that's the way I've just been dealing with it, you know. And if we do get it, it affects our lungs. And as a musician, that's not a good thing. So I just have decided to just sit back and relax and learn new things.
Yeah.
So.
That's good. So we have Christy, Shelby, Edwin, and then Ted. So we are kind of getting up to the time where we're pressed against time. So we ask that you try to keep your questions to about 30 seconds, if not shorter, if you can do that. So Christy, go ahead.
Hi, I just want to say thanks for a great presentation. And COVID-19 has been very hard for everyone. And there's been a lot of chat programs and a lot of stuff to keep us busy. But does anybody have any suggestions on masks and the lighter ones? I know there's the felt ones, but they're not good enough.
Yeah, well, like I said, all you can really do is look around, read about them, experiment with them. I mean, I don't have any recommendation over one over the other. What they're recommending is that you try to use at least a 2 or 3 ply fabric, not a single piece of fabric. And if you can get them with a filter, that's going to offer a little bit more protection.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Christy. And next we have Shelby. Go ahead, Shelby.
Hello, can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. So first of all, thank you so much, Doctor. We really appreciate it. A word of advice to the musicians out there. You can do Facebook Live, have Facebook concerts virtually. My question though is, when is there any estimation as to when the CDC is going to produce a vaccine or some type of medication for us people with challenges?
That's still in hot debate. You know, you can read as many different responses to that, but it's probably going to be a while before the average bear can go out and get the vaccination. And, you know, before you go out and get the vaccination, you want to be as sure as possible that it's safe. What's happening now is people are experimenting with it, but most people, the vaccination is causing a COVID-like condition. So not really helpful.
I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, again, keep in contact with your local pharmacist and your medical doctor, because they're going to have the information for you that you need.
Okay. Thank you for that. And Edwin.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yes. Speaking of face shields and face masks, what would be best for a blind person to use of those two?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Speaking of face shields and face masks, what would be better for a blind person to use?
Oh, whichever you're comfortable. Whatever, you know, whatever fits you, whatever you feel like gives you the best exposure. What you want from these things, be it a face shield or a face mask, you want a pretty tight seal around your face. The tighter it seals around your nose and your cheeks and under your chin, the better. Because if you have a big gap or holes or whatever, you may as well not wear it because you're allowing the virus to come in. Um, so whatever fits well on your particular face. And again, that may be different from person to person.
Hmm. Yes, because I always have my sunglasses on. That's why I'm asking.
Oh, okay. Well, do you feel like it seals pretty well and fits?
Well, I think I feel better with the face mask.
Okay.
Since with the face shield it feels tighter.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
So yeah, just whatever works and fits right for you.
Okay, thank you, doctor.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, Edwin. And Ted, you're up.
Alrighty, thank you for the presentation. It was quite informative. As somebody who has had pneumonia twice in 5 years and had been taking the what's it called? The injection, and still got the virus anyway. I'm not real convinced about taking the vaccination for COVID, even if it is offered. My Joanne and I live in a nursing home, and we probably will be one of the first to be administered or ask if we would like such vaccinations, since we're not even allowed out of the building unless it's a medical necessity. I'm curious of something that I can't find a straight answer from, and have had arguments on Facebook about this. Our president of the United States has now contracted COVID, gone to a very good hospital with top of the line doctors and nurses and such, and now is back in the White House. And we hear, especially here in the nursing home, this: if a staff person or a resident gets it, then the whole building goes under a 14-day quarantine. So in 3 days, he's discharged back to the White House. Does he still have a contagion within himself? Or is he, since they say he's not running fever, so he's no longer contagious? And then the second part to that question, now that he's caught it and presumably on the mend, as are literally hundreds of thousands of Americans, once you catch it and you develop antibodies, you can't catch it anymore. And if you can't catch it anymore, then you can't spread it anymore. Am I correct in saying that? Or can you catch this more than once in this?
Some people are reinfecting, even though they maybe should have developed antibodies, and they are getting it more than one time. Okay. Some people are not. It's kind of like most of the time when you get the chicken pox or the measles or something, you're not going to get it. But there are many people, including myself, who have gotten it twice.
Really?
So,
wow.
We really don't know.
Okay. Fair enough.
All right. Thank you, Ted.
Thank you.
And we have one final question, and this will be the final question because we have to move on, but it is Dinah. Go ahead, Dinah.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Two quick things. Going back to the question about mask versus face shield, I just wanted to mention that a lot of places will not allow you in if you are only wearing a face shield. Usually you have to wear a mask as well. I know that with a lot of paratransit services, they will not allow you to ride if you are only wearing a face shield. So I just wanted to make that point. And then going quite a bit back in the questions, somebody had said that the number of people killed by COVID is less than the people who have died from the regular flu. And I just wanted to say that that is not true. They have said definitively that the number of people who have died of COVID is more than the last 5 years of people who have died from the flu. So, so unfortunately, I think there is a lot of misinformation out there, especially on social media. So I just wanted to mention that. But the main thing is be sure that whatever building you're trying to go to, or if you're trying to ride a ride share or paratransit, that, like the doctor said, that you know their procedures, because you don't want to make an appointment to go somewhere and then you arrive wearing just a face shield and they won't let you in. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those comments. And that is definitely correct about the COVID and the flu. COVID is much, much more lethal. People who have had it say that it's more painful. It's more, it has a much more significant impact than the flu. Having said that, it is a good idea to try to get your flu shot, because if you do get the flu, one thing that we forget is there are we're still going to have flu, we're still going to have colds, we're going to have sinus infections, all the things that we typically have in the winter. But if your immunity is lower because you have one of those things, you just increase your chances of COVID. So take care of yourself mentally, take care of yourself physically, do everything you can and know to do, because hopefully you will decrease your chances of problems later. And I know sometimes you just feel like, I'm not going to deal with any of it, I don't care anymore, but step back and do what you need to do for yourself and for everybody else. So I just want to say one last thing. I'm on Facebook at Eagle Wings 10 or Jessie Rayl, Rayl. And also I do a call, which is very similar to this, always talking about different mental health topics with the ACB communities. On Tuesday at 1 and Wednesday at 9, both those are Eastern, if you are interested. And if you want to get a hold of me, send Ron an email and he can forward your request.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Rayl. And we are now in the hands of our fearless leader.
Dr. Rayl, what I would like to know is what information would you like me to share? Because we have a follow-up email we will send out to all the registrants, all the attendees here. And I will send that out. If you want your Facebook profile, if you want your email, I will include those in that message.
If you look at my signature on my email, the email is there, the Facebook name is there.
I will copy that.
You're more than welcome to give people that information.
I've got you. And I appreciate the very informative and helpful presentation. And thank you for joining us today. And everyone's muted, but please give her a round of applause. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I found you so many times. I was nodding in agreement. I was like, yes, yes, yes. As I told you, my master's is in clinical psychology. I'm not practicing as a therapist. I have the education and training. I just didn't follow through on the licensure. But and what I'm going to talk about is my experience and also offering community resources. And you already touched on one of those, that 211. 211 is, I know we've got at least one person, maybe two people here from Canada. I don't know if you have 211 in Canada. I know we do in the US. When you call 211, it is sponsored by the United Way. It's a general switchboard for a lot of community health. And there's a lengthy list of information they will give you up front. But when you call 211, if you press 6, there's information specifically on Texas 211 about COVID-19 and the latest information that they have to pass on about that. If you need to speak to someone about that, if you have questions, and if you have questions about mental health, press 8. And that's, as Dr. Rayl has shared here today, you know, mental health is a critical part of surviving through this, as well as any part of the physical illness that might come down. We live with the conditions that this has put upon us. We are dealing with social distancing. We are dealing with the touchy-feely world of the blind, in the world of don't touch me, can't touch this, of COVID-19. And we have to balance that. We have to balance the lack of social gatherings, limited opportunities we have, and we've built on our technology skills. If you're like me, you have learned a lot more about Zoom than you ever did before. I've used Zoom for 2 years prior to the pandemic, but I learned a lot more, signed up for a pro account, and learned how to do a lot more for myself. And it's like so many other things, finding what works best for you to cope. Because what we're talking about is how best to cope with the situation that's put upon us here. Pardon me. I know myself, I have limited my exposure outside the home. I have a compromised immune system from the same auto accident that caused my blindness 27 years ago yesterday. I lost my spleen in that auto accident, and I never knew what a spleen did, but the spleen is the last part of your immune system. And when my doctors first informed me about my spleen, I learned that every year you need to get your flu shot, you get your pneumonia shot, you be aware of all viruses because their effects will be magnified. So I limit my exposure. I haven't seen my mom in, well, gosh, since February. And normally she lives 4 hours away. So it impacts me, and each one of us has our own personal experience with things like this. And that's what so much of this coping comes down to, is you as an individual. You know what it takes for you to deal with situations. You know what triggers anxiety within you, and you know what works to help alleviate stress, tension, anxiety within you. And if you don't know how to do this and you're feeling these things or depression, it's time to realize when you need help. As Dr. Rayl pointed out, you wouldn't talk to your doctor for someone when you need a veterinarian, but for counseling, for mental health, learning to deal with stress, anxiety, depression, if you're feeling these symptoms, and if you're not sure what classifies as depression, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual has a whole checklist. And if you just Google the symptoms for depression or anxiety disorder, you may realize, hey, I'm dealing with a lot of these. There's key parts of the depression that are red flags when doing therapy that a counselor would look for. Your appetite, has it increased or decreased? How are you sleeping? Those two right there are big triggers. Are you socially isolating? Are you engaging less in things that you normally would do? Those are big clues to depression setting in. And depression is not just feeling sad. Depression is a chemical imbalance within you. And this goes back to what Dr. Rayl said. If these symptoms are occurring, medication may be what you need to get through to help get the chemical balance back in line. Talking with a good therapist is also a good thing. If you cut yourself and it's bleeding profusely and you need help, you wouldn't wait at home and say, oh, it'll stop eventually. If you've got a 5-inch gash and it's pouring blood, and you're not going to wait. If you are experiencing a mental crisis, if you're experiencing depression that's beyond your control, that you can't stop, then it's time to realize, hey, I need to reach out and get help. Finding help in your community can be simple, it can be complicated, but beginning to look for help is a key. And you know yourself better than anybody else. You know if you're feeling overwhelming anxiety, if you're lethargic, sleeping all day and not motivated to get out of bed, you're just not wanting to do anything, you feel like curling up and going away, you just want to crawl under the covers and not come out. That's not good. And only you would know how you feel. This is internal, and you need to make that first step. You've got family members, you've got friends, they may recognize some of these symptoms and they may talk to you. Hey, are you okay? Are you feeling depressed? Well, you may not think it's depressed, but when you start looking at symptoms, realize if what I'm dealing with is more than just feeling sad. So it's okay to say, this is how I feel. Talk to people, talk to your family, talk to your friends. If you don't have anyone else, find a support group, reach out to one of us. We're here. We have several support groups for the visually impaired here. If we don't know the answer, we are very resourceful. We work hard to find answers. A lot of people don't know, most, if not all, counselors will work on a sliding fee scale based on income. When I was at the university working on my master's, we worked for as little as $5 a session because we were students in training. We were offering therapy under the guidance of the head of our department, Dr. Pledger, and the clients were getting effective counseling. They were able to afford the counseling, and it's in your community as well. So if you're looking for resources, start looking at 211, start looking mental health counseling, and put in your zip code, or put in LPC or therapist. Look for this online with your zip code. Find someone near you, call and talk. A lot of insurance will cover a certain number of sessions with the therapist, and asking for help is not a sign of weakness. For for a little bit of background, those of you who don't know, before I became blind, I worked in the prison system here in Texas. I was a captain, and a lot of times that was a very macho kind of situation. Asking for help, even among staff, was often seen as a sign of weakness. And I'm here to tell you it's not. So if you're thinking, well, I'm stronger than that, it's not about strong and weak. It's about dealing with your mental health. If you have cancer, if you have COVID, if you have a physical ailment, you will go to a doctor. Mental health is no different. Take care of you. And I'm not a preacher, but I will preach this message all day long. I will tell you, you've got to take care of you. You've got to love you enough to reach out and do that. I am, as I said, not a therapist. I am not a counselor. I help a lot of people by talking and using the skills that I learned training to be one, though. I've used these skills in everything I do as an assistive technology trainer. When you walk into a class to work with a young student who says, I don't want to work with Mr. Ron today, I took off my trainer's hat and put on my counselor's hat. What I did wasn't counseling. I can't call anything I do counseling, but I use these skills just as well with him. And I'm just me. I'm not the professional counselor. There are good therapists out here. So if I can do this effectively, I know for a fact there are good mental health counselors out here, just like Dr. Rayl has been sharing from her own experience. There's a need for taking care of your mental health. Work to take care of you and provide that mental health for yourself. Recognize when this is overwhelming. COVID is something that has changed our world. If you look back a year ago and said, hey, guess what? We are going to shut down the country. We're going to shut down college basketball and the whole tournament, and we're going to shut down all professional sports, and everyone's going to have to wear masks, and restaurants are going to close, and bars are going to close. You would have thought, that's crazy. That'll never happen. Oh, yeah, and you're going to have to wear a mask everywhere you go. And it's going to be a very different don't touch me kind of world. You would have thought, that's just crazy. But it's the world we're in. And that's the world we deal with today. So it's dramatically changed. So don't be surprised if the effects are dramatic on you as well. The big thing to do, though, is recognize when you're feeling the anxiety, the depression, when you're feeling the need to just chill, the need to cut off that overflow of information. As Dr. Rayl advised, limit your intake of this news, because no one wants to keep hearing, oh my gosh, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. Okay, you can tell me once and I'll understand, I'll find shelter and I'll do what I need to do. But I don't need to keep it pumped in 24/7. And that's, again, going back to taking care of you. Control what you can around you. A lot of times, as someone who's visually impaired, we lose control of a lot of things in our lives. We lose a lot of independence. Take control of what you can. Control your environment. control how you feel when you can. If you know what works to relax you, if it's deep breathing, if it's meditating, if it's exercising, and for what it's worth, exercising is good medicine. You release endorphins. You release the exact thing that your body's needing when you're depressed. You need a good counterbalance. You need this infusion of endorphins that will, you get a good workout. It helps with your mental health. So if you don't know how to do deep breathing exercises and visualizations, or if you don't know how to relax yourself, seek these sources. Find this. Find how to do this for yourself. When it comes down to it, the people around you, your friends, your family, they love you. They want to take care of you. They want to do a lot for you, but they can only do so much. It comes down to you and recognizing yourself, your needs, and what you need to do to help yourself. Empower yourself. In the blindness world or disability world in general, we hear the word advocacy all the time. I'm a huge fan of self-advocacy, and we'll talk that talk all day long. I believe in it. I'd rather teach you how to do something than do it for you, because I empower you. I want you to speak up and say, hey, I need some help. If you don't say that, I don't know you need the help. And that's what all self-advocacy is. Mental health, same thing. Be your own best self-advocate. Speak up. Recognize your needs and speak up. Like I say, your family and your friends, they're there. They want to help. They may say, oh man, I'm sorry you're feeling so bad. Let me know. So, if there's anything I can do, well, lean on them. Lean into them. They're your circle. They're your safety net. They're there to hold you up, but they don't know if you don't tell them. But also empower yourself. Know your resources. Build up your toolbox of things you can do for yourself. And that's what we've been wanting to share with you here today. In all our workshops, as Dr. Rayl said, find things to do. When we started these Zoom workshops for HAVIN, it was because our Inside Expo was canceled. We wanted to do something, but we didn't know what to do. And we were meeting on Zoom, and we were brainstorming ideas and said, hey, what if we, instead of doing a whole day of workshops, did a regular series of workshops and try to share things that you can do for yourself, bring us together for some informative workshops, educational workshops, do some fun workshops. And that's how we're here today. We've got a good team here at HAVIN. They may call me their leader, their president, but I'm just Ron. There's nothing I can do by myself. I've got a great team around me. And if I'm not feeling up to something, I've got to tell them, hey, I need your help. And it comes back to that advocacy again. This is up to you. This is up to us. It's something we all do. And I'm all about success. I want everyone to be successful. We're all going to be successful at different things in our own ways. But when it comes down to it, we want to do things that make us feel better. And that's what this is all about, making ourselves feel better. mentally, engage yourself, find things to do, read a good book, join a reading group. You know, those of you who don't know, HAVIN is made up of 8 groups for the visually impaired here in Houston. And that's just here in Houston. We have people I know from other parts of Texas, from other states, from other countries. And in doing this, what we have is the absolute power to connect. When we join with other groups, we bring our resources together. When you come and you take part in what we're offering, you have the power of our 8 groups, our different minds coming together to share resources and information. And in your community, I'll bet you have others just like you looking for that. Find people, connect with locally that want to do things just as well. And if it's virtual, so be it. This is our world. This is that crazy world we couldn't have dreamed of 12 months ago. But we're here. And I'm open to ideas. We do a survey after every workshop. If you've got ideas for future workshops, we want to know what you want to know, what you want to see here. We have fun workshops. We've done karaoke. We've done fun and games. And I'll go ahead and tip our hand for our next workshop in 2 weeks. One of our groups is the Foundation Fighting Blindness. And the Foundation Fighting Blindness has an annual fundraising event, their annual vision walk. Well, guess what? It's virtual this year. We are supporting what they do. We are celebrating. There's a virtual team. If you want to join the virtual team for the Houston chapter, the Foundation Fighting Blindness, I'm going to include that in the follow-up email as well. And our next workshop here is going to be a celebration of the Vision Walk. It's going to be a party. So like we have educational workshops, we had cooking, we've had consumer fraud, we've had fitness, we have today's mental health, but we're going to party next week. So we'll be sharing that. I don't know if anyone has any questions for me. I'm open to any questions. So mental health related, COVID related, I'm not an expert. I read a lot. I pay attention to a lot of news. And if you have thoughts or questions, whatever we can do, bring it on.
Okay. There was one put in the chat while you were speaking, and then we'll go to Edwin. So Victoria, if you want to read the one from the chat.
Sorry, Terrence, I couldn't unmute myself. I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Cheryl is asking, is there a phone number to call for technology to receive assistance?
There is, and a lot of that's going to depend on what your technology question is. There are different numbers. I know for assistive technology, Microsoft has an assistive technology helpline. Apple has an assistive technology helpline. There is, I want to say there was something from Chicago Lighthouse, maybe. They're offering technology assistance on any device at one time. So the resources are there, and a lot of times are just a Google search away. If you the key part of that is knowing the right words to search for. Technology, help, blind, and whatever your particular need is, if it's Zoom, if it's a particular device, iPhone. One of our groups is the iBug Today group. They have regular meetings throughout the week. They have for the Mac as well as iOS devices, as well as they have a monthly Android chat. They even have a virtual movie night for the social part, as well as Star Trek chat. So there's a lot of help out there depending on what your needs are.
And Ron, I just wanted to also clarify. So it was the number for technology skills to accomplish certain tasks, specific tasks. So that,
okay.
I guess I didn't read that one right. So.
Okay.
Could also include Ira and Be My Eyes. Well, Ira especially will help you with a lot of technology tasks.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think the problem is, and I think what it is, it's IRA is apps, and I think they wanted to know if you can call somebody to receive the type of assistance that IRA and Be My Eyes provide on the phones. That's what I was getting on it.
Got it.
Well,
okay.
I know with iOS, if it's something related to an iPhone, iOS device, I know iBug has a mentoring program where someone's there that can help, basically help guide you through some of the questions you may have and need to work out if it's iOS related.
Okay. And moving forward to hands, we have Edwin, Christy, and then Ned. So, right. Edwin?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
We got you.
Okay, speaking of exercise and working out, do you think practicing sports would be a good way to, at least on a socially distancing way, of releasing stress and anxiety?
I do, and I would encourage it. If there's ways of doing it and doing it safely, absolutely. There's lots of different people doing that already, and it's just finding the sport or activity that you're interested in and finding the way to do that safely and get you the maximum benefit from the activity.
Yeah, I'm really into sports, and it's basically part of my life. So that's why I'm asking. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Edwin.
Okay. Here we go to Christy. Go ahead.
Hi, Ron. It's Christy. I have some the group technology groups. One's based at BC, and it's called GTT group for technology, and they do iOS, iPad, cell phones, all sorts of things. And then there's another group called Microsoft Technology Group, and it's based out of the U.S., and they give technology to everywhere. Would you like me to send those along to your email so that way you can give them to your group? Thank you.
Please do, and I will include those in the follow-up email as well to everybody here. Thank you, Christy. All right.
Thank you, Christy. Next, we have Ned. So you're on, Ned.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Rayl and Ron, for your excellent presentation today. My hand went up because we were talking about getting specialized help from Microsoft or Apple, and the Be My Eyes, it's already been mentioned, but the Be My Eyes app, when you click on that app, it comes up, you can call the next available person, or they've got specialized help. and you click on that button, and Be My Eyes has partnered with about, I don't know, 30 different companies, and Microsoft is one of them, and I've used their help, and that's excellent. So you go to a specialized person.
Just through the Be My Eyes app.
That is correct.
Excellent.
On the Be My Eyes app, the big button is for calling the next available volunteer, and then below that is a smaller button and for specialized help. Like you can get a hold of Procter and Gamble on hair products, or Tide on cleaning products, Microsoft, Apple. Yeah, so Be My Eyes keeps adding partnerships, you know, all the time. So
thank you, Ned. That was good information there. All right, anybody else?
That's it currently for hands, but there is some more chat activity, and Victoria can update us on that. Victoria.
Okay, so one of the things is it's that somebody just put in there, Ron, that there was some, they had some tech trainers' phone numbers and contact information. So, and then the email address, I was assuming that maybe we can get a hold of that and provide that to everybody that's on the call through our follow-up email.
Excellent. I will get that from the chat when I send out the email as well. All right.
Okay. So it looks like that's it for hands.
Everything else was chats, Terrence, but I don't see any more questions in the chat.
Herbie just popped up.
All right.
So go ahead, Herbie. Uh-oh. He unmuted and then he went back to mute. Hold on, let's try this one more time.
Terrence, before you do go on, Cheryl just asked about how do we go back into the chat. Yeah, hold on one second, Herbie. And I just was going to just tell them, if people want to see what's in the chats, they can just go to the More button at the bottom of the screen, and they can click over until it says chat. You can click on that chat button, and it will allow you to see all the chats that have been sent to the group.
And if you do this, if you're using Zoom on your PC, in your documents folder, you have a Zoom folder, and the most recent folder at the bottom of that list will be today's call. This chat will be in there if you're on a PC.
This is Stacy. Real quick, my apologies for the background noise. But we can, we'll make sure that when we send out the survey for today's workshop, that we include some of the tech resources that were mentioned.
Absolutely.
And it might be helpful with regards to the chat information, if someone monitoring that could read that out loud, because people on the phones are not going to have access to the chat feature.
All right. So can you guys hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Herbie.
Okay, so I have a general question that's kind of, so the terminology was brought up earlier, face shield, and I've heard about that before, but what exactly is one and how does it differ from a mask?
Well, if you picture just a clear visor that comes down over your face, it shields your face. And my in-laws, my father-in-law is in a nursing home, nursing facility right now. And my mother-in-law is just now being allowed to go through the steps to go visit. And part of what she had to do, one, go through training, two, she has to wear full PPE covering her down to her knees, a gown, wear a face mask and goggles, or a face shield and a face mask. So it's separate from the face mask. The face mask will cover your mouth and nose with a cloth or material, but the face shield comes down, and there's even one that comes up from below and it lets, which I am told is a cooler thing because it doesn't block the heat, hold heat down. It lets heat escape. But what it does is keep you from coughing or breathing or sneezing anything out that would possibly expose others. So that's what the face shield does versus a face mask.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
And it's attached to a headband typically that I've seen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ted. Go ahead, Ted.
Okay, yeah, it wasn't unmuting until it just gave me the notification.
All right.
Yeah, Joanne and I live in a nursing home, and they've been wearing those clear face shields for the better part of 2 weeks now because one of the employees, a nighttime aide, tested positive a couple of weeks ago. And so they went down for Station 1, which is the station Joanne and I live on. They went into full isolation mode where they had a box of plastic gowns in front of every single room in Station 1. They would wear the full face shield and the nose and mouth mask. And it was actually really hard to understand some of these people, especially those that had thick accents. coming in here, and then they're trying to, with body mechanics and all, manipulate me because I need help transferring from into the wheelchair, from into the bed and such. And so and they're very hot to wear. Every single one of these CNAs or certified nurses assistants were complaining about how hot these plastic gowns are. I'm more accustomed to see them when I get like an infection in my finger or my hand or whatever, and I get sent to the hospital over something like that and have to be on IV antibiotics. I'm more accustomed to seeing it there. It was astounding to see, and them having to walk up and down, and every time they go into a different room, they had to put this stuff on. And it wasn't because of any of us; it was because of an employee that got sent home 2 weeks ago, and they just lifted it yesterday.
Well, I know I went to get my teeth cleaned a few months ago, and the dental assistant, she was gowned up. She had her face mask on. She had her goggles on, face shield on, and she had a fan down on the floor blowing up on her because she says it's just so hot. So I understand.
Going home because they're wearing space gear.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate it, Ted.
Yes, sir.
All right. Anybody else? We're at a point of wrapping up. If you don't have any further questions, we do have a door prize today. Where's the prize patrol? Stacy, where are you at, ma'am?
Hello there. And again, thank you to everyone who spent your Saturday with us. And remember, if you take part in the survey that will be following up in the next day or so, your name will be entered into the next door prize drawing for our next workshop, which will be on Saturday, the 24th. So the lucky door prize winner of today, and we want to thank iBug for their donation, and it will go to Julie Klein. So
Hey,
Julie, if you are on the call, and I think you are, go ahead and raise your hand.
Julie is still here.
Okay. And then Julie, Ron will get with you and take care of your $25 door prize.
All right. Well, congratulations, Julie. And thank you for being a regular participant here with us as well. As I said earlier, our next workshop will be a party. It will be a celebration. Again, it's for the Foundation Fighting Blindness Vision Walk. And that will be a virtual event in 2 weeks as well. And that is on Saturday, October 24th. And we will have the celebration in the evening that day. So it's going to be a little later time. So please make plans to join us. It's going to be a party. I think we're having a variety of activities. So we're looking forward to it. It's time to celebrate, have fun, and use some relaxation to de-stress from all the COVID stress. So thanks again for being here today. Thank you for the great team around me here, because I couldn't do this myself, that's for sure. Thank you all. Thank you to Dr. Jessie Rayl. I appreciate you more than I can say. You gave a fantastic presentation, and we appreciate you from all the way in West Virginia. So thank you all, and we will see you next time.